0, -1.
Hola and welcome to the Book Bulb podcast.
This
is your host for the evening,
Lesley.
and Madeline.
I don't know if you're going vampire
I was kind of like all over the place with that. It was like French meets vampire meets something else.
We
I was
are
just like,
two nerdy vampires who are also
suck your blood.
and talk about authors.
But instead of blood, we actually like to drink cocktails.
Yes, good little segue there.
And we pair the cocktails with our authors that we would like to hang out and drink with.
Yeah. So this week we are doing Jonathan Swift. And he's known for writing Gulliver's Travels and A Modest Proposal. And he's also just very much like a well-known satirist who's later admired by like Mark Twain, George Orwell, probably even Oscar Wilde and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yay! I'm so excited. I'm going to be honest, I've never even read Gulliver's Travels. I know the name Jonathan Swift because he is like that big political satirist that if you're in the literature world, you've heard the name. Mm-hmm. Never read Gulliver's Travels or any of his work. Besides knowing his name and that he was a political person, I actually don't know anything. So I am really excited to learn tonight.
Cool.
We've definitely established we are nerds and we like to do the research and then we like to just learn from each other. So it's just, we're nerds.
Yeah. And I will say that like doing the research on Jonathan Swift was difficult because of his like political ties. And it's like the 1600s, 1700s in England, where I know nothing about what happened there. And so I went down a whole bunch of like crazy little rabbit holes trying to learn anything I could when like it would be referenced. So I apologize if it's kind of a little all over the place or my story's not perfect.
Well, I'm a huge Anglophile. Like, again.
Okay.
And so I know the political turmoil of what's happening during the late 1600s, early 1700s. I mean, it's huge. It establishes a lot of what we even are practicing in politics today.
Well, perfect. So then maybe you'll even like help direct me with my quick summaries.
But I'm going to say that it's very much a time of all over the place because they're just bouncing back and forth. Things are bouncing. It's a giant tennis match. So get ready for tennis.
Yes, exactly. So we are going to drink. It's called a flat white cocktail. With coffee. And the reason I chose, I'll just say, I'm not going to like give all the reasons, but the one thing I thought was interesting is I found this quote that Swift said where he dubbed taverns, quote, a place where madness is sold by the bottle, and that he actually preferred to drink a lot of coffee while he was writing. And so that's why I wanted to have a coffee cocktail of some sort.
Okay, cool. Cool. I like it. Will I still be able to kind of guess at the end of why it pairs? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not the only reason.
Right, exactly. So it's flat white. It's coffee, vodka, and Bailey's, and it's basically like 1 part each. So I do a little extra vodka though because otherwise it's like all Bailey's. It's all creamy.
Yeah, to kind of just like that the acidity from the vodka helps to cut down on the acidity from the vodka. I don't know what I'm saying. Is vodka considered acidic?
I don't know. Or is it just a base?
I don't know. Because too much Bailey's can be a little too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
So I can see why adding like vodka like waters it down or the acidity kind of cuts it down. I don't really know. I'm not a chemist.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
l'chaim.
L'chaim. Ooh, hello, gorgeous. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. That's very much, I'm sitting in a tavern, there's a fire, I've got Jonathan Swift reading, and I'm slowly sipping this on a warm winter's evening. Warm
winters.
Well, why is a warm winter happening?
I don't know.
A cold winter's night. That's what I was trying to say. Can I throw in a really fun random fact really fast before we dive into Jonathan Swift?
Yeah.
So I learned today, because again, just nerding out and looking things up, what the word wassail actually means.
Wassail?
Yeah. So, like caroling the song, like, I really don't want to sing for our podcast.
No, but I don't even know what that sounds like a Dr. Seuss word. I've never heard anyone
Okay,
use
so
that.
it's like, the wassailing, we're all wassailing. It's
all along. Is that Jingle Bells?
No, it's not Jingle Bells. Here we come, a wassailing, a rung Lisa Green.
Oh.
Here we come, a wassailing, till fair to be seen. Yeah, okay, and I'm totally turning red. Oh God, I'm sorry. Anyway,
just auto-tune you later, make you sound like Britney Spears.
Yeah. Oh, I gotta stop. Anyways, first sip of cocktail. Really already doing embarrassing things. Anyway, so yes, I always assumed wassailing was where you go around and you're caroling. It's like an old English term for that. Well, yes, but it's also an old English term for drinking excessively with your friends, having a good time, and having fun noisily.
Oh, that's
I'm paraphrasing,
so fun.
but that is the other definition of wassailing. So I'm like, that's kind of like my new favorite word. So Leslie, let's wassail.
Let's wassail.
Yeah.
Before we move on, because I really did want to tell you this last time and I totally forgot. I learned that in Iceland on Christmas Eve, it's traditional that everyone gets a book. That's like the gift that you open up on Christmas Eve. No, this is the best part. Is that you open up your present on Christmas Eve and it's a book, and then you're supposed to spend like staying up all night reading your book and eating lots of chocolate.
Oh, shut up! I'm moving. I'm going to Iceland.
I know. I was like, what? That's the best tradition ever.
Like ever. I mean, I usually, because it's me and probably, well, you don't celebrate Christmas, but that's what I get is a bunch of books. So why not just open those and just stay up all night reading? I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Because I think I've mentioned before that my stepmother-in-law owns a bookstore, and she always gets me a book. She always knows my taste. She knows really good books. So I'm going to open up hers and just stay up all night this year.
Eating
and I also...
and reading. The goals of life.
And to piggyback off that, my dad did tell me once that Icelandic people are like the number one people for like authors or like storytellers. Like there's more authors per capita or per person in Iceland. Something. Oh, okay. Again, I'm paraphrasing his fact, but he said that like they're such a traditionalists of storytelling that that makes sense. They actually celebrate stories in the written word. And,
oh, we're all about reading books. Like, so it makes sense. Everyone's an author.
So Iceland, you're amazing.
Yeah, love Iceland.
Yay! Now let's segue to 1600s England.
Yes. So, 1667, November 30th, Jonathan Swift was born, most likely in Dublin, Ireland. He, I guess, at some point has claimed that he was born in England. His family says Ireland. And I think later records discovered definitively that he was born in Ireland. But both of his parents were English. So it's possible that like that's where there's some confusion that he was like, oh, I'm English, but he was born in Ireland. Longest sentence I've ever had to like write for like just saying when and where someone was born.
Yeah, I mean, the further back we get, that kind of makes sense because there's just
it gets like really like
record keeping
floppy.
Yeah, things are floppy.
His father died about 7 months before he was born from syphilis, which he claims he got from sleeping in dirty sheets while out of town.
Huh? Well, scientifically, no.
That's not true. You can't just get it from dirty sheets.
So don't be panicking about dirty sheets. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hopefully he did contract syphilis after the conception of Jonathan Swift.
I mean, yeah, I guess, or something. I don't know. Actually, that's a very good question because it seems like he died 7 months, so he must have had syphilis for a while. So I guess that means his mom had syphilis.
Which means that it's usually passed on to the baby, right?
I don't know. That's a good question. He was kind of, I guess, sick for a lot of his life too, like from a very young age, and there's always been like speculation of what he probably had. So, but syphilis never comes up in the speculation of what he had. So
interesting.
But yeah, I mean that would make
yeah.
Anyway, I didn't even think about that like when I was doing this. So when he was just an infant, his nurse secretly brought him to England, where she educated him and raised him for 6 years before returning him to his mother in Ireland.
That sounds so weird and so sad. Like, I'm gonna take this child.
We're gonna go for
And
a
now,
walk.
is my return time up? Excuse me, ma'am. Can I get a return on this? I'm gonna return this child back to you. Okay. Full
Yeah.
refund? Thanks.
Yeah, he's like walking and talking and all sorts of things now,
It's
but
just like,
here's your baby.
I'm returning it. Bye.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure about all the details of that either because, again, really old.
Yeah.
1600s.
Oh, my Lanta.
So
Okay.
after this, Jonathan Swift, he was mostly raised by his uncles because he didn't really have parental figures in his life. He was well educated. He attended Trinity College in Dublin, but he didn't graduate completely. Later on,
Sorry, what?
He
How
didn't,
do you
like-
not graduate completely? Like, is it one of those things where it's like you walk, but you don't actually get the diploma?
Later on in life he was given specialty gradia, Bachelor of Arts degree. And this is given to students who fail to conform to specific regulations, but like perhaps ultimately deserved their degree. So it sounds like maybe it's like he didn't take some like 101, psych class that he was supposed to, and meet all his GEs or whatever the equivalent is back then. And so they didn't give him his degree back then, but then later on they're like, oh, you're cool. Like, we'll give you your degree. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's like you
Okay.
have a Bachelor of Arts, but it's this speciality gradia. I don't know.
Doesn't
It's
that
Latin.
mean free too? Like gratis, free?
Gradia. I don't know.
Well, and gratia, but like
It's like a grace, special grace, I think is what it
oh,
translates
okay.
to.
I
But
don't
yeah, so he's kind of given a degree later. So he because he really felt highly about education. He would spend like 8 to 10 hours every day on his feet. He felt like that was an important thing, to constantly be educating yourself and to be like learning and doing things like, so on his feet, quote unquote, being like, I don't know, reading and like studying and doing things.
Okay, so not like literally on your feet.
Yeah,
like
I don't think
standing.
literally, unless he's, I don't know, the first person to have a standing desk or something.
Ooh,
Jonathan Swift, inventor of the standing desk.
That would be really cool to like have a modern day standing desk and call it the Swift.
Yeah.
Because then it's Swift stuff.
Oh, yeah, it Swift's up.
Ideas for you people.
Yeah. So after that, he moved to Surrey to become a member of the Moor Park household of Sir William Temple, who was a distant relative of his mother's. And while he was there, he helped Temple write his memoirs. He left Moor Park at one point and returned to Ireland to take the orders of priesthood at the Anglican Church in 1695. And this is kind of why he's sometimes known as Dean Swift. Then he returned to Moor Park, and this is where he really started to form his education, because Temple had this like huge, extensive library. He was also he was like a really high, I don't know, proper man that all these people really admired, and so there's all these like famous people of the time, like, and politicians coming in and out of the Moor Park house, and so he gets to spend all his 8 hours on his feet reading and being a part of the library and talking with all these like big politicians. And so he ends up receiving a master's degree from Oxford, probably because like Temple sort of helped him. He never actually really went to Oxford. It's just more like, oh yeah, these like rich dudes and you're clearly well educated. Here's a degree.
So it kind of goes back to what we talked about with Louisa May Alcott, and now it's just like, I'm going to be a nurse. Okay, here's your nursing license. Get on that tent.
Yeah.
I want to be educated. Okay, here's
you
your
go.
degree. Goodbye.
Yeah. We see you belong to a house with a big library. You're probably educated. All right, here you go.
I mean, in a way, it kind of makes me feel better because how like the university system and the college system has become so inundated that the idea of having a bachelor's degree has almost become more of like that quote unquote high school. Mm-hmm. But when you compare it to what was happening back then, at least we earned that bachelor's degree.
Yeah, we spent years and took a lot of tests and
studied. Like, we actually had to prove ourselves.
yeah.
Instead of, hey, you have a library. Cool.
Here's a degree.
Here's the degree.
Here you go.
Yeah.
You're good.
Again, I mean, are they even questioning if he's cracked open one of the books?
I know.
Who knows?
I know, right? It's like, I don't, and again, it's back then, so I have no idea if he like even had to take a test or have like at least a, oral exam, prove to, the president of Oxford.
You sound really smart, and you have this whole library. Let me give you the highest degree we have. Mm-hmm. You are now a doctor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so then he became, Dr. Dean Jonathan Swift.
Great.
So while at Moore Park, he befriended the housekeeper's daughter, Esther Johnson, who is later known as Stella. I think he nicknamed her Stella. I don't think she just like, and now my stage name is Stella. So
I like how the jazz hands went out with that too. Stella.
I'm Stella. Shake, shake, shake. So he would educate her when she was a child, and they've had a lifelong friendship that I'll get into later. So during his time at Moore Park, he began to write really terrible poetry. A lot of his poems were just like praising Sir William Temple and other like completely lame stuff like that. It's just like, I love you. Thank you for taking me into your house and introducing me to all these books. Yay.
Yay.
Kind of, not that bad, but it was like, it's really bad stuff. So since he's introduced to all these famous politicians, he was also, kind of someone who Temple would send to King William because he had gout, and he would hang out with King William and entertain him.
I'm looking at you like, what? So this guy is just sent to King William.
Yeah, like, hey, go hang out with him. He has gout.
Because he has gout and you're entertaining?
Yeah.
What a weird world Jonathan Swift has led.
Yeah. And
hey, Leslie. I have this guy.
Yeah, okay.
I know that we think you can cure him, but maybe not. I don't know. But you're entertaining. So will you go hang out? Oh, by the way, it's the governor.
Okay. Little orphan boy, go hang out with the king.
Let's go. Oh, weird. Okay. But yes, your history is accurate.
Yes. And so, and one of the ways that he most impressed King William was, quote, graciously showing him the Dutch method of preparing asparagus.
Shut up. What? Oh my God. And asparagus too. The vegetable that makes your pee smell bad.
Yeah. I mean, maybe with the gout, he's like, I need more vegetables in my life. And, oh, you know how to cut it? Because the Dutch way, I had to look it up. I'm like, what the fuck is the Dutch way of preparing asparagus? It's when you cut it at a slant. So, you've got that like, and diagonal kind of endings, those like half, and then placing them on the plate like that with that's all it is. It's just cutting it at an angle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that really impressed the king.
Wow, this is amazing.
Show me how to do it.
Let's keep going for more asparagus, please.
Okay. I mean, I could show you how to do it with like cucumbers, maybe.
No, I like these asparaguses. They're all cut interesting.
Well, maybe we could julienne some tomatoes?
No, I just want the asparagus.
All right. Here we go.
What's that funny smell?
So, Sir William Temple died in 1699, and Swift felt it was time to move on from Moore Park. He did continue to take care of Stella, who now was 16, and advised her to move to Ireland, which she did in 1708. She was Swift's closest friend, and it was possibly even his wife. Quote, the mystery of his relationship to her has never been solved. One thing is certain, that her love was the solace of his life, and that his feeling toward her was that of exquisite tenderness, in which alone he seemed to find peace. So, a lot of people during that time, like Stella, when she moved to Ireland, she had this like housekeeper woman with her, and she says that like they weren't married, Okay. And there's a lot of people who are like, no, that wasn't true. Like, after Swift died, but at one point, like a really close friend of Swift's went to him and was all like, hey, I kind of want to marry, Stella Esther, or like propose to her. And Swift very politely convinced him not to propose to her. So there's definitely, like maybe it wasn't like an actual marriage, but they probably maybe saw each other as married or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's hard to say.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to say.
Because, again, no actual record keeping, and they didn't write, like, their own autobiographies.
Right. Yeah. They did write several letters to each other over the years. Many of them, Swift would include like humorous descriptions and reactions to like current politics and like the social events. And they did this, you know, back and forth with each other, like all of their life. Just like writing all these, you know, funny letters. And also he would write all these like very tender things about like, you know, just how wonderful she is and how he like brightens her world and blah, blah, blah,
Aww.
you know? Yeah.
Aww.
And so,
but again, it's hard to say because it's like
that's kind of sexy for back then, you know?
That's true. That's true.
Or is it just
they
being
thought
like...
a flash of an ankle was sexy.
Right, yeah.
Touching of a finger was sexy.
I gotta cover those piano feet, legs, you know, with those little doilies.
Right, exactly. So, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So it's like, oh, you know, but it's, at least if anything, like they had a very, very close relationship. And
yeah, there's no arguing that one.
Yeah. So in the early 1700s, he became involved in politics, and his reputation really kind of launched when in 1701 he published a pamphlet called Discourse on the Contests and Disassentions in Athens and Rome, which was about a conflict which occurred in the House of Parliament. There were 4 members, 1 Tory and 3 Whigs, who had participated in the Partition Treaty, which is also the Treaty of London, and there was discussion about impeaching them, which Swift disagreed with. So basically, and I'm going to like totally butcher this, but like in the late 1600s, Spain was having all these like monarchy issues because their king was childless and he was like slowly dying for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And so there was all this debate of like, do we split up Spain between like the different areas that kind of have some sort of royal tie to ownership of Spain, or do we like kind of fully give it to like the French royal family or the Austrian royal family? Like, what do we do? Spain was also really powerful at the time. And so like Spain was like, I don't want to, you know, we don't want to split up. Like, we don't want to be like, you know, split between 2 different, you know, monarchies. Like, we kind of want to stay our own shit.
Yeah.
So like basically everyone's freaking out. There's a bunch of wars going on. And so Spain essentially decides that like that the 6-year-old Joseph Ferdinand of Bulgaria was going to be made king. And so they're all like, great, everything's decided. And then a year later, the 6-year-old dies of smallpox. And so then it's like, okay, it's all crazy again. And we got to figure out who's going to like take charge of Spain, you know? And so that's when Great Britain decides to like be like, okay, well, we're going to get involved with this since all of the rest of Europe is freaking out and we should probably be a little bit involved. And so, you know, that's where the Treaty of, you know, London comes into play. And then immediately after, you know, the decision of like, you know, this other guy, it's another Charles, like King Charles kind of guy who comes in and is going to be in charge of Spain. War breaks out. And so a bunch of people in Parliament are mad at the other people in Parliament who, you know, kind of made that treaty or were like a part of the treaty. So, and they're like, well, yeah, I've got to impeach them because now there's war and fuck, we might be involved with it because we were involved in that thing, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's my summary of like 20 years of European.
That's a solid summary right there. It's crazy. They all freak out. And again, yes, Spain was very powerful, so everyone wanted in on that.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it too. That's, you know, Spain is powerful because, you know,
they had stuff in the Americas.
Yeah, they're still out exploring. Spanish Inquisition, all this stuff is very, very like, oh, this is an important country.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was.
We don't give a lot of credit to Spain nowadays, but Spain is a huge world contender.
Yeah. Oh yeah, especially
for
back,
history.
Yeah. And so yeah, so that's Swift writes this whole pamphlet. Basically saying that how these people shouldn't be impeached, you know, that like there's kind of an insanity factor that nobody can like predict what would have happened, you know? And so to, you know, have this hindsight of like, oh my God, they did this horrible thing. not so smart. Like,
Yeah.
like we put these people in office for a reason, and, they made a decision that was probably somewhat helpful, even if it's, potentially hurtful in the future. So,
Yeah, I mean, as much as we love to hate on politicians, they do make decisions where they're trying to predict what's happening. No one can predict what's happening.
Yeah, you can't predict later where it's like, okay, we're all good with this decision, and then war still breaks out. And it's like, fuck, man, we didn't know that was going to happen.
We tried.
War didn't break out after the first one, like when the, baby died, like the 6-year-old died. So, like...
Statistically, we thought it would be fine.
Yeah, it seemed like an okay thing. Yeah, and so it's written in this way where it's just, he has, like, flawless logic. He uses, a lot of common sense. It really kind of establishes, like, sort of his writing style in that sense of just being a very articulate person. And the Whig Party totally loves him because he, like, basically saved their asses with writing. So they're like, woo, hey, Jonathan Swift, like, let's hang out, buddy.
Yep.
So he's all in with the Whig Party for a little while. Then in 1704, he publishes one of his first well-known pieces, A Tale of a Tub, which is about 3 brothers who represent different branches of Christianity. And it's this very complex satire with the main story being this, like, parody with a bunch of, like, smaller little parodies sort of woven into it. And at the time, it was seen as an attack on religion and criticized for being, like, profane. Not because he's, like, yelling a bunch of profanities, just because it's like, oh my God, how can you write that? That's blasphemy.
Yeah.
And so it's really more of like a political commentary, but like since religion and politics are so intertwined,
yep.
It's hard to like separate it. And so clearly so even the idea of like, these are 3 brothers and they're representing 3 branches of Christianity. Like those 3 branches of Christianity in the novel are representative of what was also going on politically during the time, which was, that the Catholic monarchy ended, and now you had, who is it?
Protestants.
Yeah, but maybe I didn't write down the name of the person who was in charge.
Well,
at the time.
yeah,
William. Was it William? Yeah.
Well, because that was the whole point of during this time in
Yeah.
England. It was this struggle between, do we get rid of the monarchy, also back and forth with Protestants and Catholicism.
Yeah.
Or
And like the
Catholics.
Protestant
So
side,
it's
or the Church of England, that's what it, like the...
It is the Church of
Yeah.
England, but it's Protestant.
Yeah. And for Swift...
Because Henry VIII develops the Church of England, but
Yeah.
it really is just Protestantism. He was just like,
Yeah.
he was just giving himself this out. With like, he wanted to get divorced
Right.
from his brother's widow that he married for political reasons. He's like, oh, I'm not actually happy with this marriage. I like this Anne Boleyn girl. She's cute.
Yeah.
She does things in bed. He makes this up, but it's basically Protestantism.
Yeah, and if anything, though, but it is this like more of a religious freedom that people are seeing. At least I think that's from like the Swift perspective, is that like when things were under the Catholic monarchy, like there wasn't as much religious freedom as there is under like Church of England, where it's sort of like a little bit more open for everyone.
Interesting, because that definitely wasn't the case. It was definitely like, depending on who was in power in England at the time, was that opposite religion was definitely persecuted.
Well, sure, yes,
and there
but...
was no real religious freedom. But if you happen to be celebrating,
I mean, something outside of
religion-
just like Catholicism, like Protestant at least still allows like more of a general sort of Christianity. That's what I've been seeing.
I mean,
what
it's
he
just-
writes and stuff.
yeah, but it's just probably, but the point of that is that he's probably writing this because he's in line with that same religion that's in power.
Oh, well, yeah, no. I mean, he's
So then you feel
Anglican,
that.
though, which I guess is kind of Protestant. I don't know.
Yeah,
But, that's
it's
where it's like,
similar,
it's
yeah.
off, but it is. But, like,
Yeah.
there's more freedom for him. So, so that's what's going on with the Tale in of a Tub, is that you have, like, the Catholic, you have,
You
the
keep saying Catholic, it's Catholic.
Catholic,
but that's okay.
whatever. The Catholic mythology, whatever it is.
Catholic.
I don't know things. I read. I don't speak things. Words out of my mouth. What?
It's okay.
So, yeah, and there's people fearing that like the Catholic monarchy was going to like return, and so he's kind of dealing with a lot of that sort of like, you know, the dissenters and all of those things that are going on politically. But people like totally are like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like you're talking about religion and everything.
I mean, but that's definitely just like this whole time is so important because it is why we say like, let's separate church from state. Because again, it's just like, but anyway, that idea is there because of how horrible it was for centuries.
Right.
For whoever was in power, and if you didn't align with whoever was in power religiously, was just shitty.
And I guess if anything, I mean, this was probably more because I'm seeing, you know, from Swift, I'm seeing that there is more of like a, when there was a shift at this point, at least, so like the early 1700s, like there was at least a little bit, there's not like full on religious freedom, you know, like Hasidic Jews are not going to be like walking down the streets of London or something like that.
Exactly.
But there's at least more of like a, you know, whatever you do in the privacy of your own home, religious wise, like keep it to yourself, buddy, but like do what you want, you know, kind of but like again, starting not so to much form.
Because they did destroy Catholic churches. They burnt them.
Sure. I mean, you're always going to have crazy people on either side and you're always going to have extremism, but like, you know, there's at least that blooming of like, oh my God, we don't have to just conform to like one thing because that's just the way things are. Like things can change, you know, and this is like that beginning of like, oh, look, like things can kind of start to change a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a very long time for them to actually change. But
So, at this time, Swift was still actually looking to get work in higher positions in the church. But even he admits that like, you know, this piece prevented him from any, you know, from having any chance of that happening because everyone saw it as like religious blasphemy. But he's a very religious dude, but he, you know, he wrote this thing and everyone's like, oh my God, you're horrible.
Okay.
So, but instead it did establish his literary presence and he started hanging out with like a lot of big political and literary figures, most notably Alexander Pope and John Gay. Those were his like two BFFs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So they're like all, they had even like a little like writer society and
how cute. Let's drink coffee and write in our writer society.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally what they were doing. So, and I should mention, like Swift's like kind of a weirdo. His friends would describe him as someone who hardly ever smiled, but he was like a really funny guy. So I think he's like just like the original straight man, you know, where he's just like totally unsmiling, monotone, just like says something funny like within his group of friends. Like,
and it's surprising because it's like, you said something funny.
Yeah.
You don't look cheery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like he's
the definition of deadpan.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's totally deadpan. Like Alexander Pope and John Gay, I think both of them like came over to his house one night and he's all like, oh, I didn't make you guys any supper. And they're like, oh, no, it's okay. We already had supper. And he's all like, look, you know, you came over to my house. I should have been making you supper. So how much would have that cost me? Like 2 pence? How about I give each of you a pence? And so that's the same as me making you supper since you already had it. You know, just like... kind of funky. You know?
Yeah. Sounds like I'd love to hang out with him.
I'd be like, all right, I don't want to come over all the time and not eat supper. Money, please.
Money, please. How do you make your living, Leslie?
Oh, I go over to Jonathan Swift's house.
And I eat beforehand.
Yeah. I pay him maybe like half a pence back when I want some wine, but otherwise, you know, it's all good.
Yeah. I just make sure to eat below that 1 pence meal, and I'm making a profit.
Yes, exactly. He also like really hated poop. Like he had this like fear of like excrement. And he would like be constantly like washing his hands and face like several times a day.
So original germaphobe.
Yep, original germaphobe.
Original deadpan, original germaphobe.
Yep.
You know who this sounds like?
Who does it sound like?
Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh my God.
Jonathan Swift, JS, is Jerry Seinfeld.
Whoa.
JS. Oh my God, to go down your like time traveling thing.
I don't know if Jerry Seinfeld would like become a dean at a, you know, church.
No, and he's also Jewish.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I don't think he'd become a dean at a church.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Never mind. The idea was there.
Yes.
There's similarities enough.
Well, funny people. They're always funny. So in 1710, Swift switched from the Whig Party to the Tories, as they were more willing to listen to his thoughts on like religious freedoms in a sense. Like the churches at the time were being paid from this like one like fund or act or something like that, but then like the churches in Ireland weren't getting that same money, and he felt like the Whigs weren't listening to him when it's like, hey, Ireland's also kind of a part of us, and so why aren't we paying those churches the same way that we're paying the Great Britain, the churches in England. And so but the Tories were willing to like kind of listen to him on that, and also the fact that like the Irish were kind of being treated poorly anyway, and he was a big advocate for like that not to happen. And so he kind of switched over to the Tory side.
And again, that kind of aligns with his original political satire too, because they were more like, let's get rid of the monarchy. Let's do our own thing. Let's like kind of develop as a nation without our historical ties. They were kind of more of like
some king baby that's in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Or exactly. Some woman.
Yeah. Oh no. Atrocities.
Yeah. So he became the editor of their paper for them, and he was producing like a ton of articles and pamphlets about politics at the time. In fact, actually, like political pamphlets weren't really a thing until like Jonathan Swift started doing them.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he's like the original like political pamphleteer, because that's just the easiest way that he found to like push out his ideas about things.
Yeah, awesome. That's
People
cool.
were like, this is really cool. Let's all do this now.
Influencer?
Yeah. And so he found his way into the Tory government's like inner circle when they came into power. And he even helped like mediate these like the contentious relationships between the Tory leaders. And so he thought that like, because he was like being so like awesome and supportive and all of that, that they would reward him with a church appointment in England, like especially like specifically in like London or something. But Queen Anne fucking hated him so much because of like the Tale of the Tub. And also he wrote this poem called The Windsor Prophecy, where he basically like called out all of those that were close to Anne that he felt that she shouldn't trust. And so she didn't like that either.
I mean, to be fair to Queen Anne, she was going through a hell of a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, 17 dead babies in 17 years. Like, and so it's like, what, this guy's like this thorn in my side of like, get out of here. Like,
yeah. And again, like you said, she's a woman in power. She's kind of already has to be paranoid. She went through 17 miscarriages and stillbirths. She was a little wacky.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Olivia Colman plays her very well in the movie.
There's a movie? What's the movie? Called Queen Anne.
No.
By Olivia Colman.
No, she got an Oscar for it. I can't remember the movie. The Queen's
Speech.
No. No, it was about
prequel to the King's Speech.
It was about how these two handmaids were vying for her attention, and yeah, I suggest the movie 100% if you're into this kind of history stuff like I am.
Now I am right now.
Yeah, it's definitely something very good to watch. Her performance was amazing. Olivia Colman is absolutely spectacular. It's sad. And in the movie, just so you're aware, there's 17 rabbits always around.
Ugh, creepy.
And that was actually, that was a representation of every miscarriage you would get a rabbit kind of a thing.
Oh my gosh, that's
to help
sad.
The idea was medically to help supplement the woman's brain to think that she had that child.
I'd rather have kitties.
17 cats would be a lot.
No, but they all stay as babies.
17 kitties would still be a lot. 17 of anything is a lot. But yeah, so just so you're aware, when you watch a movie and you're like, what the hell is with the rabbits?
Yeah.
It's because that was like that idea of like, let's supplement her.
Yeah. I wonder if it name checks Swift, because he, called out these like, because handmaids and all the ladies that like ladies in waiting or whatever it is, like all the women that were really, really close to her. That's where he's like, he writes this poem and he's all like,
yes, we need to rewatch it, because it probably did, because it was a lot of like, ooh, should she trust her? Should she not trust her?
Yes, exactly. And that's what he did, is he's just all like, you shouldn't trust this person.
And she is going through those trust issues. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta watch it.
So no wonder she hated him.
Yeah.
She's like, dude, don't like publicly name who I should not be trusting in my group.
I'm already struggling with that internally. Can you not make it public? Thanks.
Yeah. So
Poor Queen Anne.
So because of that, he didn't get an appointment in England, but he did end up with an appointment as deacon at St. Patrick's in Dublin, which is, I guess, a pretty good deal. But
Yeah.
He felt like it was like they were kind of being like, okay, go back to Ireland, get the fuck out, like the queen doesn't like you, you know? And so he saw it as kind of this exiling. So he
In
went.
a way, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Because of like the way things were politically, like Dublin was up there, but not as powerful as London was at the time.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like a weird exile.
Bye-bye.
Like, go to this like smaller city. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Aren't you like from Ireland? I mean, don't you want to kind of maybe go there?
Yeah.
Isn't your wife maybe around there somewhere? Or
Something?
maybe she's
Yeah. Weren't you like born there?
yeah. Go back to where you came from.
Get out of here.
Yeah. So, I mean, so he was there for a little bit, but then he went back to London, but he would still serve as dean for St. Patrick for like ever. So overall, he had really mixed feelings about everything that was going on politically. He wrote a lot about that in his letters to Esther/Stella and in his journals of his time. And actually, like all of his letters to Stella and the journal were published after his death in a book called A Journal to Stella. So you can find it all.
Aw.
Yeah. One of Swift's quotes on the parties at the time was, quote, "No true lover of liberty could unite with extreme Tories. No true lover of church could with the Whigs." So he kind of just felt that, like, yeah, the Whigs are really kind of anti-religious, and he felt like, people who believe in like freedoms of other kinds, can't really like the Tories, and so I think that's where he's always been and why he kind of stayed in this like in between with both parties for everything, where it's like, okay, as long as you're a part of my cause that I'm into, then I'll, and you'll support me, then I'll, support you, but otherwise,
He's
politics
what's
is
the term? A waffler?
flip-flopper.
Flip-flopper?
I mean, I don't think he's totally a flip-flopper. I think he's just like issue specific, and I think that's really more of what it is.
I mean, and that's why it's frustrating to have only two parties.
Yeah, always. I mean, yeah.
Why does it? Because then it just divides it too much.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. So anyway.
So then also during this time, he became very close to Esther Van Homra. She's Dutch, so it's a Dutch last name.
Okay.
And he would call her Vanessa.
Oh, cuties.
Yeah. His two girls in his life, they're both named Esther. He calls them by different names.
Stella and Vanessa. Cuties. Love it.
He wrote some poetry at the time that featured her, and it's clear in their letters to one another that she was like super in love with him, and he may or may not have ever returned that love, because definitely at one point though he's kind of like, okay girl, like, whoa, back off, like, you're getting a little too close, and she's still like, but I love you so much, So in 1714, Queen Anne died and George I took over. George I.
Ooh.
And the Whig Party returned to power. And most of the Tory leaders were tried for treason because they had been conducting secret negotiations and peace treaties with France during the War of Spanish Succession, the war that started because everyone freaked out about a kid dying. And so now Swift definitely like left for Ireland basically for good in 1714. And Vanessa/Esther follows him to Ireland.
Aw. Which, okay, because like, Vanessa is like the word for butterfly.
Aww.
So it's like, I'm like, oh, his beautiful butterfly following him. Like, I'm beautiful. Like, again,
If you let me go, I'll come back to you. I really will. I promise. Every single time. See, I'll follow you wherever you go.
Just loyalty.
I think he called her.
That's what Vanessas are. Shout out to Vanessas everywhere. Shout out to my Vanessa.
He called her Vanessa because like her name's Esther, and so then Essa for short for Esther, and her last name was Van blah blah blah, blah, and so she was Vanessa.
Oh my god, I love that.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's where she got the nickname Vanessa. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's such a good name. Vanessa.
Yeah. So they kind of had a back and forth, whatever kind of relationship. And then OG Esther Stella She's in Ireland, and supposedly maybe some like conflict or some sort of like confrontation happened between like the two Esthers, and so then finally like Vanessa Esther kind of was like, oh, okay, I'll back off, I'll go back to England, like never mind, bye. So
Oh, that's sad.
well, I mean, I don't know if like,
Well, sounds like Stella wasn't super duper in the picture.
yeah, I know, she was like over in Ireland all the time.
Yeah, so it sounds like, wow.
like, well, no, now I
Then
have
she
my
got
guy.
territorial, but it's like, girl, you might have lost that territory.
Like, when was the last time you saw your maybe husband? Like
Yeah,
3 or
like,
4 years ago or
Exactly.
something? Come on.
Come on. Let the butterfly have him.
Yeah, you're all about Vanessa. Like, I don't know who she is, but I'm in her court.
She's cute. She's Dutch. I like it. She's loyal.
So he's in Ireland. He's doing his job as dean of St. Patrick Church, and again, he's, you know, he feels very he feels like he's been kind of thrown off in exile. He felt like, quote, like a rat in a hole. But this is when he writes his most famous works. He started writing a lot of pamphlets to support Irish causes, like the Drapier Letters, which is when England granted a monopoly on coin production to like this one guy. And so he's just like, that's not good. And so he writes like a whole satirical piece about how that's not good. And that like Irish people should be allowed to have like, you know, like own their own manufacturing.
Yeah.
And then he wrote his most famous of pamphlets, which is known as Modest Proposal. But the actual title is A Modest Proposal for Preventing the Children of Poor People in Ireland Being a Burden on Their Parents or Country and for Making Them Beneficial to the Public. Yeah. That title is a paragraph.
Yeah. I was like, okay, let me break that down. I'm used to 1 to 2 word titles. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah.
And so it's you know, so it's satire. It's one of those examples that teachers use in school about irony or satire, you know, where it's the idea of taking a very extreme position in order to make people think about how they think about things.
Yes. So in 8th grade, my English teacher had us memorize definitions for like 50 words.
Yeah.
That was great. But one of them was satire, and I always hear the definition: satire, poking fun at human folly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. See, and I feel like that's the thing. I remember learning about satire. Like, what is satire? It's been around since like the freaking Greeks, and like,
yes,
and it's just kind of its own like thing. Like, there's not really a good definition of satire. Satire is like art. You know it when you see it, in a sense. Like, you can kind of pinpoint things that are aspects of satire, but like there's not really a great full definition of satire. I'm sure there's going to be people who are going to be like, excuse me, actually I know. No, you don't. And if you write to me telling me that you think you know the definition of satire when I've studied it my whole life, like even if you give the best, most clear, like sent from God definition, I'm still going to be mad at you. Like, because it doesn't exist.
I think the underlying theme with satire, because not everything can be satire, is that making fun of something, but how it's made fun of, whether it's extremes or not extremes, X, Y, and Z, there's so many variations of what satire is, but it's the theme of making fun of human ridiculousness. Yeah, like or the extremities,
flipping things around in a way. Yeah,
it's a humorous look at humanity. Yeah, but in which way? Yeah, it's so broad in the way it does it and how it does it. Everything is so broad. Yeah, that you're right. There's no one specific way to look at satire and be like, okay, because you look at one satirical novel, it's completely different from another satirical novel.
Right, yeah. It's
the idea of that you're like
you're taking an extreme of some sort, and you're
magnifying. Mm-hmm. You're bringing attention to human variations of ridiculousness, whatever you find the human ridiculous. It's magnifying on humanity.
Yeah. And so Modest Proposal is really, it's kind of like taking the perspective of like the poor people, or taking like the struggle of the poor people in Ireland at the time, but like coming at it from this like sort of created voice of like the rich people of just like, well, why don't we just eat the babies? You know, why don't the poor people just sell their babies to rich people, and then they'll make money, and then they won't be in poverty anymore, and you know, we'll be able to get through this famine because we'll be eating babies. You know, I mean, so it's this very extreme, but it's a way to like show like, hey, you know, y'all up here in the upper class area should not be dictating, you know, how poor people should be living their lives, because you don't know shit, because you're in your little bubble, you know?
Exactly.
And so that's, you know, and so that's what he was kind of trying to show is like, hey, you guys don't know what's going on with the poor people. You act like you know. And so this is my way of putting that into art. Like,
yes, it brings to mind the Marie Antoinette quote, "Let them eat cake."
Yes.
Like, you're stupid.
Let them have $600.
Yes, just let it be. Don't let them eat babies.
Yeah. So it's you know, definitely one of those ones that's what people, even if you don't know Jonathan Swift, it's like, oh, I know A Modest Proposal. Oh yeah. And so then also this is when he writes one of his most well-known works, titled Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World in 4 Parts by Lumiere Gulliver, first a surgeon and then a captain of several ships. Or as it's better known,
oh my God,
Gulliver's Travels. Yeah, he really won you over.
Jesus,
the people.
He's wordy. Oh my God. I was like, what's this now? Oh, I heard Gulliver. I don't think I heard travel. Okay,
Nope.
Condense everything down. It's Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah.
Can you say that title one more time?
Travels into Several Remote Nations of the World in 4 Parts by Lumiere Gulliver, first a surgeon and then a captain of several ships.
Oh my God. Gave the whole book away. No twist, no surprise in this one. Hey guys, guess what? There's gonna be nations, there's gonna be surgeons, and there's gonna be captains. Great. Do you need to know any more?
I know.
Oh, Jonathan Swift.
I mean, I guess
cheeky.
people didn't have like illustrations and stuff on books, and so maybe you had to have like a lot of words so you kind of get the idea of like what this is going to be about or something. I don't know.
You know, Pride and Prejudice. No pictures in the original copies.
Yeah.
Simple. Got to the point.
Maybe people back then were like,
understood.
oh my God, she only used 3 words. Wow. I wonder what that's about.
Maybe. Yeah. Because come to think about it, like, a lot of Shakespeare's original titles were also very lengthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Okay, so maybe it was a thing.
Yeah. It was a thing for some reason, but yeah. So. Gulliver's Travels, it's considered a satirical masterpiece. It's still considered one of the best novels of all time, probably because it's so original. Like, he had no influence. Like, he's original. And it's also, you know, on one hand, it can be seen as this, like, sort of children's fun adventure, giants and little people. And, you know, there's this road trippy kind of aspect to it. But then ultimately... Well, it is. It's road trippy.
I didn't even think about it, but I like it. Yeah, it is road trippy.
Let's all go on a road trip, guys, and like, the fun adventures and antics that
the
happen.
original National Lampoon's Family Vacation.
It is.
I love it. I just didn't think about it. I'm laughing because it's like, oh, that's true.
And so, yeah, so it's, you know, so there's that, like, on a surface level, there's that aspect. But then it's like, it's totally got all this other stuff going on. You know, Swift is definitely talking about a lot of the politics and things that he witnessed throughout his life and the commentary on the culture of the time, which is why I think I went into things a little bit more than maybe it seems I should have had to go into. But it's like when you read Gulliver's Travels, it's all in there. It's just shown in this thing of like, here's these giants and, you know, here's these people who hate other people. And like all of this kind of stuff is produced in this metaphor, in these like different types of allusions and things. You know, the relationship between the British and the Irish, you know, the Whigs and the Tories, it's all in there. And people like have constantly been trying to, even during Swift's time, people have been constantly saying like, oh, I understand what these metaphors are and these allusions are. And during Swift's time, every time someone would be like, oh, I'm going to produce a key, quote unquote, to the novel so you understand what he's referencing. And he would come out and be like, no, you don't understand what I was talking about. And
so now he's also a hipster.
You don't understand me, Mama.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah, like there's like one moment where Gulliver is on the island of Lilliput, where it's like the little 6-inch people. And so
again, I know this just because I saw the cartoon version that came out. Ugh, I don't know. I had it on VHS, so it's like this like
yeah.
I grew up with the cartoon story, so I remember that part.
So you might really like it because it is all just like the history of that time, but in funny metaphors.
I like it.
And so he's on Lilliput, and the castle gets set on fire, and so Gulliver like puts it out by peeing on it, and and like
the asparagus pea.
And like, oh, no wonder they were so mad at him. Like, not only did you pee on our castle, it smells really bad in here. But like, and so people have said that is essentially kind of a reference to when the Tories, had these like secret peace treaties with France, where it's like, here's this situation where it's like, it's not a great thing that you guys did, but it did solve the issue. Like, hey, we don't like that you went in secret behind everyone else's back and signed these peace treaties, but it put out the fire.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm very curious to read this now.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like I kind of see it as like, it's like when people write journals in code, where like he doesn't want to say outright, and he's someone who's talked about things politically outright so much, but now he's like getting older and he's off in Ireland in his own world.
He's been banished a couple times.
Yeah, and so it's like he kind of is like, okay, I still kind of want to write about my experiences being a part of this like political elite world, but I don't want to really get in trouble for it, so I'm going to write it in this like funky magical metaphor. So that's the way I see it. So he's pretty sure, and I believe this because he was pretty sure that when he published the book, everyone was going to be super mad at him. So he goes to England in 1726, and he goes and stays with his friend Alexander Pope, and he publishes the book anonymously at first. And it ends up being this like huge hit. It like has like several like reprints within 1 year.
Wow.
And like within the next year, it's published in like several languages. There's even like illegal copies being like smuggled into Ireland because I don't know, for some reason Ireland wasn't like into a lot of books or something.
The British really put down a lot of people, including the Irish.
Yeah. So they couldn't have books back then. I don't know what the deal was, but
just like, there was just that like high level of control coming from the British government towards Ireland, Scotland, all of the colonies that were starting to develop. Yeah. So, but they're smuggling in illegal copies. It's printed in like French and Dutch and Spanish and everything like right away. Because it's just like this huge hit of a book. So, so he's hanging out in England for a little bit, and, but then he hears that, Stella Esther is dying. And so he rushes to comfort her in her final days, in 1927. But he wait, what'd you say?
Esther Johnson and Esther Stella.
No, but the date.
Oh, sorry. In 1927.
I was like, wait a minute. What?
we skipped forward like a couple hundred years.
I mean, like, I didn't mean to like actually draw attention.
Oh no, that was actually smart because I wrote it as
like
1927.
So into this, and then I hear 1927. I'm like, wait. What?
Yeah, Jonathan Swift is still alive, and he's here right now.
Hi, Johnny. Missed you, bud. Stop being so serious, you germaphobe.
No, can you like just crack a smile for like one moment?
Do you ride in cars with comedians?
You would love the host.
You would.
1727. In 1727.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So she's dying.
Yeah.
1727.
So he rushes to her to, like, you know, be there to comfort her, you know, when she's dying. But he's so overwhelmed with, like, the fact that she's dying. Oh, yeah. And again, he's kind of sick, and possibly at this time he's kind of going crazy. So
Question of potential syphilis.
I mean, that is, yeah, really. And so, in her, like, final, like, day before she dies, he's not there with her because he just felt like he couldn't. And so he goes home and he starts writing, The Death of Mrs. Johnson, which I think, you know, and her last name was Johnson, and he didn't write The Death of Miss Johnson, The Death of Mrs. Johnson, which makes me really think that they had, like, maybe they weren't officially married, but they were, like, married to each other.
Him dealing with all this stuff in England. She's running off to Ireland all the time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I don't know, but, like, so I think they saw each other as married, or maybe he kind of saw, like, if anyone, that's his wife, you know. I don't know.
Yeah. And then that would explain why she kind of got a little possessive, because it's like, even though we haven't been together,
like,
he's
bitch,
still mine.
Vanessa, get away from my man.
Poor brave Vanessa. She saw a single guy who was smart and cute.
Yeah.
Looked like Jerry Seinfeld. She just wanted to be with him.
Right. So, yeah, so he writes that. And then from here on out, he becomes really obsessed with death. And yeah, he's probably going insane. Supposedly, there's some, like, people, like, critics who have said that, like, the final couple of chapters of Gulliver's Travels, like, you can really see that he's going crazy. I don't know. You know, but at this time, it's like he's really isolated. He's been alone. Basically, all of his friends have now died at this point. And so, yeah, so he's definitely kind of nuts. And so he has to have someone, like, take care of his estate for him and all of that. In 1731, which is, like, a few years after Esther died, he wrote his own obituary. But then he, like, lives on for a while. So, quote, definite symptoms of madness appeared in 1738. In 1741, guardians were appointed to take care of his affairs and watch lest in his outbursts of violence should he do himself harm. In 1742, he suffered great pain from the inflammation of his left eye, which swelled to the size of an egg. 5 attendants had to restrain him from tearing out his eye. He went a whole year without uttering a word. And so apparently he, I know. I'm like, how does your eye swell to the size of an egg? It's like, oh
God, thank God.
I'm like, I would try to tear out my eye too. Like,
right? It's like, oh my God, like, that kind of a story makes me really thankful that I'm alive right now.
I know. It's like, oh, okay, I'm healthy.
I have an eye the size of an egg. I'm going to go to a doctor. They're going to fix it. Right? And it's going to be okay.
You wouldn't have your eye get that size.
Egg.
Because you'd be able to go to the doctor. You'd be like, my eye's swelling. It's really red or something. I'm going to go to the doctor. Yeah. Maybe not right now. We couldn't do that right now. But, you know, they'd be like, just live with it. Like, as long as you still have your limbs. Because we're COVID still. And it's, like, insane. And no one can go to the doctor.
There's certain people in our lives that are definitely having problems that can't go to the doctor for stuff. But yes, post-COVID or pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go to the doctor. You get your eye checked out. All good.
Back then, it's like, oh my God. Okay,
no, we'll just have to live with it for a year.
We'll just hope it unswells soon, mister.
Yeah, have some peas.
Ugh, maybe some asparagus.
That's what I meant, asparagus.
Cut the way.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So he wasn't. He basically stopped speaking. You know, he didn't speak much, and so in 1745, October 19th, Swift died at 80 years old.
Wow. Okay, he lived a pretty decent long life.
Yeah, for back then, I'm like, oh my God, he basically lived to be 120 in our years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was buried in St. Patrick's Cathedral next to Esther Johnson's side.
Oh, okay, fine. I feel a little bad for Stella now. I'm just saying.
That's who he wanted to be buried next to, is Esther Johnson, Stella.
I think I'm a little biased against Stella because of Tennessee Williams. Streetcar Named Desire, because this Stella character is just infuriating.
Yeah.
Infuriating. So,
Yeah.
It's like anyone who's like, Stella.
I like Stella though. Anyway, so he wrote his own epitaph, like I said, or I said he wrote his own obituary earlier. But he also wrote his own epitaph, obviously.
Yeah.
You know.
You're going full obituary.
Yeah.
You're also writing epitaph.
So his epitaph reads, "Here is laid the body of Jonathan Swift, Doctor of Sacred Theology, Dean of this Cathedral Church, where fierce indignation can no longer injure the heart. Go forth, voyager, and copy, if you can, this vigorous, to the best of his ability, champion of liberty."
Oh,
Yeah.
he thought highly of himself.
On some level.
Yeah.
I will say, I have a quote that I like, that I feel like
But
is...
again, like yourself. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. One of his quotes is, "Where I am not understood, it shall be concluded that something very useful and profound is couched underneath." You know, which if anything, that's actually kind of the definition of satire, where it's just like, hold on, this person seems insane. Maybe there's something not so insane about what they're saying. You know?
Yes. Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And then another one of his really good quotes that I have to say, because it's kind of a thing. "When a great genius appears in the world, you may know him by this sign, that the dunces are all in a confederacy against him." Which,
Yep.
ended up inspiring John Kennedy O'Toole, I believe. His book, Confederate of Dunces. So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, cool. Johnny Swift.
Yeah.
Dean Johnny Swift.
Yeah. Dean. Doctor.
Dean Doctor. Dr. Dean.
Yeah.
Johnny Swift. Well, that was cool. He had quite a life.
Oh.
Quite an impact.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think he had syphilis.
I kind of think so now, too. Now that you brought it up, it's like... But, you know, the insanity didn't occur until, like, later in his life, which I'm wondering if because I was thinking, like, the insanity might have been, like, kind of a dementia thing or something, and people didn't really, you know, or Alzheimer's or something, and people just didn't really have, like, a phrasing or way to deal with that, you know? But it could have also been kind of a syphilis thing that...
Like, just, like, very slow, like, what's the M word that I'm thinking of? Where it grows?
Yeah, a
Masticize? Like, what's that word?
I'm thinking amplify right now. Like...
Masticize?
Something like that.
I don't know. So, your drink.
Yes.
I mean, Bailey's, because Irish.
Yeah.
Coffee, because you're going to sit there and do political... talks over a cup of coffee in the tavern, and that's what he drank. And vodka to help it not be so, like, sweet, over the top sweet. I mean, but the coffee would not make it over the top. Let me think about the vodka. So let me work through the vodka.
Or like the wholeness of the whole thing.
Yeah, just like, yeah, it all works together. His different parts of his life. It's all different, but it comes together.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it's it's strong but like not always completely in alcohol, you know, and it's something that's memorable. It's definitely a memorable drink. Like I think we've made a lot of drinks that I feel like I'm like, what was the drink we made for this person? What is it? You know? And I don't remember. And I just feel like this is a drink I'd make like a million times over. Like it's so yummy. But it's also like, it's got a little caffeine. It's got a fun kick. It's, you know, and so it's memorable. And I feel like that's probably the impression that he kind of left.
Yeah, I do. I agree, but I also think that you think it's memorable because you like vodka so much.
I do like vodka, and I like coffee a lot too.
So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because to me, the most memorable one was the Oscar Wilde with the champagne and
Yeah.
Not the Guinness.
Yeah. That's
two of
like
my
crazy.
favorite things.
Yeah.
So it's like
True. But yeah, I feel like it's one of those drinks where it's like someone's like, oh, I could totally have another one of these. It's not like, okay, well that was fun. Like, can I have a beer now or something? It's like,
I would have it again, but it would have to be decaf because I'm so caffeine sensitive.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, it's good, but it definitely has to be.
Yeah. And to go with what we started with, and then you started bringing back like last week of like, what is this? I want to do a drink that I would drink with this person. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is a drink I would have with him because I don't feel like again, he's not a big drinker person. And he said taverns are full of stupid people or whatever it was. I closed my iPad.
I like the sum up.
Paraphrasing, taverns are full of dumb people. And like, and so it's like he's not really a big drinker, but I'm sure he would like have a little, Bailey's with his coffee or something, And,
Yeah.
And if he wanted to get like real
you
crazy.
go over to his house to like talk about stuff like late morning, like or like, kind of a thing like, hey, let's like, have a Bailey's and cocktail and sit in your sitting room and talk about like political satire stuff.
Yeah. And to say that like he wasn't, I mean, again, it's still the 1700s. And so it's like he drank a lot of wine, I know, in the evenings with friends. Mm-hmm. So he just didn't see it as something, he wasn't going to be all like fucking Hemingway about it and be like, well, let's get a lot of whiskey when you drink and then edit sober.
Or Dorothy Parker.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We've covered a lot of drinkers.
Yeah, he was more of like a no. I gotta have like clear mind to do my writing, which makes sense because it's like he could be fucking executed in the street for what he.
Yeah, he has to take it very seriously and figure out ways to do it clever.
He's like purposely pissing off the Queen of England.
Yes, exactly. Oh man, cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And shout out to a beautiful human, Vanessa, and that's probably why I stuck up for Vanessa. The other,
Esther,
thank you. The other Esther. So Esther, the Dutch one, might have actually sucked. So I just was like, I got riled up because of a wonderful Vanessa in my life. So sorry if I got weird about it. And thank you to all humans out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bye.
Sources for this episode are The Story of a Civilization by William Durrett, a biographical introduction by Anna McClure Scholl, Encyclopedia Britannica biography written by Ricardo Quintana, and some critical pieces written by literary critics of Swift's time, including Henry Fielding and Samuel Johnson and W.N. Thackeray.
Thackeray Banks. My husband.